Hello, everyone. It's my honor to give a talk about water in Chinese history. As everyone knows, water is very important and basic material for human being. But at the same time, water is also important in Chinese history. In this class, we will talk about several aspects about it. The first is about Chinese miracles. The second is about the Yu, the Great, and the Xia dynasty. The third is the river and river engineers in Chinese history. The fourth is about culture with the water. When we talk about the Chinese miracle, generally connect with the water. There have been many great empires in world history. Each commemorated large territory and populations, and many lasted for a long period of the time. But none of these outlasted China. Formed in the middle of the 3rd century BC, the Chinese empire existed until the early 20th century. For the most of the 2 millennia, China was one administration. Is very rare in history. Such huge empire could last so long. In the Buddhist perspective, the Chinese empire was the major exception in the pre-modern world. Not unit a large territory was not stable over a long period of time. This long-term union is unique in the world history. So it's Chinese miracle. And at the same time, since 1300 AD, China has been the largest country in terms of population. Especially in the 18th century, 1 out of every 3 persons in the world was Chinese. However, the majority of the people share a common language, common culture, and the same writing system. Although this country contained all kinds of ethnic, religions, and regional people. As traditional convinced in China, all the Chinese people were just a member of a huge family, and China was the home of all the Chinese people. Chinese history reflects the significance of water engineer. The founder of the first dynasty of China, the Xia dynasty, was the Yu the Great, Da Yu, an outstanding engineer and organizer of hygienic workers. Early history believes that Yu the Great was selected as king because of his achievement in the taming of the Yellow River. This story has been repeated without a break throughout Chinese history. Not one generation after generation, we always remember the contribution of Yu the Great. After Chinese unification in 211 BC, large-scale water management projects become a top concern for the imperial state. No matter from the Xia dynasty, even to the Ming and the Qing dynasty, is also the top concern for the imperial state. For example, the Kangxi Emperor writes that the water engineer in his Forbidden City. Yu the Great is an ancient hero in prehistoric times, whose most remarkable accomplishment was taming the otter. He was also an excellent political leader and established the Xia dynasty. And the Xia dynasty lasted from the 21st to 17th century BC. Xia is the first dynasty in Chinese history that followed the hereditary system. Not the dynasty was succeeded by the son and the grandson, like this way. Because of his contribution, people call him 大禹 in Chinese with 大 means great. So 大禹 means great person, great hero. Some picture about the 大禹 to show that he lead some people to fight against the big flood. In prehistoric times, people suffered a lot from flood of Yellow River. The situation became even worse while Sun was the leader. And the comrade of the Sun, Gun, found out a way to taming the flood. Gun was just the father of the Yu, and Gun adopted a method of building embankment with soil and to block the raging water. However, this traditional way no longer worked well 9 years later, and Gun was killed. Powerful flood water reached the dike and brought disaster to the people again. Yu was then ordered to succeed his father to continue the work of harnessing the flood. Drawing from his father's experience, 大禹 figured out a way to digging channels to conduct water into the sea. After 13 years of fighting against the huge flood, 大禹 finally had the flood under control. After that, Yu the Great organized the people to rebuild themselves and develop agriculture by fully utilizing water and soil. He let his son teach people how to plant rice and other crops. In addition, fish, ducks, and geese were bred under the guidance of 大禹. He also directed the masses to dig ditches to lead the water flowing into the cropland. With his great hope, people lived a happy life afterwards. There is a very interesting picture to show how hard work 大禹 did. What makes 大禹 great a legend is not just 4 days after his marriage, 大禹 left home for a region where was seriously destroyed by flood. He had reached almost everywhere of the country during the battle against the natural disaster. For 13 years, he never stepped into his house, although having passed it 3 times. His son was born during his absence, but he still did not come back. This picture shows that 大禹 三过家门而不入. He passed through his house 3 times, but never entered into his home. During that time, rulers were usually chosen according to their ability. Yu the Great have proved his excellent leadership, management, and problem-solving ability when resisting the flood, and thus gained great support of the people. So Sun chose Yu as a successor to the governor of the country. Yu the Great established the Xia dynasty in 2070 BC and made Yancheng, today's Danfeng, Henan province, the capital. The establishment, which symbolized the establishment of Xia opened up a new era in Chinese history, which symbolized the end of the primitive tribal alliance and the beginning of the class society. He divided the country into 9 states for a better management and digged the water channel and left a large scale of soil for planting crops. During his reign, he valued both culture and military development in order to gain a long-term peace of the country, which also showed his wisdom in being a ruler. Yu the Great is admired not only for his hard working to fight against the natural disaster, but also for forgetting about his own interest to help other people. So after the Xia dynasty, in Chinese history culture, there's a lot of story, lot of painting, lot of poem to write about the people fight with the author to describe the author. Later, his son Qi became the new king, and the old system, Sanrang, abdicated and handed over the crown to another person, was failed, and Yu the Great was the first king of the Xia dynasty. From the story of the Da Yu the Great, we can know that author is the most important factor to push Yu the Great become the emperor, and the Xia dynasty become the first dynasty in Chinese history. Confucius observed that water can support a boat, but it can also swallow it up. 水能载舟，亦能覆舟. This description reveals that the dual nature of water. It can be beneficial as well as harmful to human beings. To exploit potential benefit and prevent its danger were greatly concerned throughout Chinese history. A famous historian, Joseph Needham, Li Yuese in Chinese name, observed in his Classical Science and Civilization in China. He said that the Chinese people have been outstanding among the nations of the world in the control and the use of water. Over 2,000 years, engineers in China developed in 3 types of large-scale water works. The first is water control projects. The second is irrigation system, and the third is water transportation network. These 3 types means 3 different aims. Water control project to protect the life of the people. Irrigation system to help the farmer have plant crops. Water transportation network to help the goods communicated, to help the country become a united one. From the map, you can see that red line means the Yellow River and the Yangtze River, the most important river in China, in Chinese history, and also have great influence in Chinese history. It's well known that in China, Chinese built the Great Wall, and the Great Wall is one of the largest construction projects in human history. However, it's less well known that 2 other Great Walls were built from water. The first was the Yellow River dikes. The Yellow River is called the Mother River in China, but the rule it naturalized the Chinese civilization. It also wreaked disaster among the residents of the North China Plain. To hold the river water within its banks, the Yellow River dikes, extending 1,500 kilometers, is also a great wall. At the same time, in the middle of the Yangtze River, another Chinese Mother River, the second Great Wall is the 180 kilometers long Jinjiang Dike in Hubei province was built and rebuilt several times over the past 2,500 years, protecting the surrounding area of 18,000 square kilometers from flooding. The Yellow River principal means Huang, principal river of the North China, also the second longest river in China, Huanghe, East Central East Asia. The Yellow River is often called the cradle of Chinese civilization, Yaolan or Muqinghe, with the length of 3,395 miles. It is the country's second longest river, separated only by the Yangtze River, Changjiang. From the picture, maybe see that the Yellow River is very splendid, very beautiful, but from a history perspective, it's also a disaster river. This is the map show that in about 5,000 years, the Yellow River changed its road from large scale, from top of the Tianjin to the north of the Jiangsu. It's changed the road many times. And the history maker research found that there were about 1,593 times rushed up of the Yellow River before the year of the 1946. Among them, there were 26 times of large changing roads. The northmost passenger of the river was the Haihe near the Tianjin, and the southmost passenger was the Huaihe in the Jiangsu. So you can imagine that the Yellow River, the harmonies of the Yellow River to the local people. In the Ming and Qing dynasty, the broken of the Yellow River was far more frequent than the previous dynasty. Many lakes have been sealed out. During the Taiping Rebellion, largest farming uprising in China's history lasted from 1850 to 64. It led to the major change in the courses of the river that occurred from the 1852 to 1854. Following in the 1887, the Yellow River brushed near Kaifeng and began to flow into the Huai River. The flood of the 1887 covered thousands of square miles, completely burying many villagers and silt. In 1889, another flood destroyed 1,500 villagers. The next major flood was happened in 1921, wiped out hundreds of populated places. In the flood of the 1933, more than 18,000 people killed. And another flood occurred in the 1938, when the dam was purposely broken near Zhengzhou to delay the advance of Japanese troops. And this was ordered by the Jiang Jieshi, and in this way to defend the Japanese troops. However, Japanese people surround other route. But so the dangerous was only accepted by Chinese people. Yangtze River, Changjiang, is the longest river in both China and Asia, and is the third longest river in the world. The first longest river is the Nilo River in Africa. The second is the Amazon River in the South American, and the Yangtze River is the second longest. It has a length of 3,950 miles. And the Yangtze River has 8 principal tributaries. On its left bank, from source to mouth is Yalu River, Min River, Jialing River, Han River. And those on the right bank, including the Wu River, Yuan River, Xiang River, and the Gan River. The Yangtze River was less than the Yellow River. The breakdown of ecological environment of the Yangtze River basin was later than that of the Yellow River basin, because from the Weijing, all the people from the north part of China rushed to the south part of China to avoid the war and the disaster. And the south part of China gradually become the center of Chinese economic. So after that, the Yangtze River area become cultivated greatly. From the Weijing, the north people, the forest resource rapidly reduced. And after that, Yangtze River have more and more flooding, especially in the Qianlong time. The biggest flood happened in the Jinzhou. This city was totally flooded by the big water, and more than 10,000 people died due to not rain. This today is some picture about the Yangtze River. Left part is the Three Gorge Dams, a very important project. And it's except the Yangtze River and the Yellow River, there was also some river engineer. The earliest existing irrigation project in the world is the Dujiangye Irrigation Project near Chengdu in southwest China. It was created in 256 BC and is still in use today, irrigating over more than 5,003 square kilometers of land. More irrigation projects were built during the imperial times. Thanks to this irrigation system, about 30% of Chinese cultivated land was being irrigated by 1400 AD, and this population was sustained during the following 5th century, although the total of Chinese cultivated land increasing threefold in this period. Compared with the population in other large regions, such as India or Europe, the population of irrigation land in China was extremely high. This is the picture of Dujiangye. You can see that is still well used to cultivate to irrigated land of Chengdu Antou. Seawall is also important project. The magnificent Jiangsu-Zhejiang Seawall, which was built along the coast of East China, formed a 600-kilometer-long fortification. This engineer work was designed to save the Yangtze Delta, the richest area of the country, from the sea, from the heart of the sea. Consider the picture. It was mainly built from the Ming and Qing dynasty, especially in the Qing dynasty, the seawall, to protect the local people. The last, very and the most important project is the Grand Canal. Among all Chinese rivers, the Yangtze River, the Yellow River, and the Pearl River are the largest in terms of length of area. All three great rivers originate in the west and flow east. In order to connect the north to south, the Chinese engineer created a north to south man-made Mississippi, or the Grand Canal. The canal lasts about 1,794 kilometers long today, and about 2,500 kilometers long until the 13th century. Is the largest artificial transport waterway ever built in world history, and was one of the mankind's outstanding engineer achievements. Just imagine that several hundred years before, the Chinese people cultivated such a great canal. It connected the Yangtze River, the Yellow River, and the other three major rivers in North China. Chinese people just not only fight with the Yellow River, Yangtze River, they also try to use the Yangtze River and the Yellow River, the Grand Canal, just try to use it to transport goods, transport food, transport the soldier. Grand Canal, also called the Jinhang Yunhe or Beijing-Hangzhou Canal, a series of waterways in eastern to northern China that linked Hangzhou in Zhejiang province with Beijing, the capital of China. It was built to enable successive Chinese regime to transport surplus grain from the agriculture-rich Yangtze River area and the Huai River venues to feed the capital city and the largest standing armies in North China. It is recognized as a World Heritage Site in 2014. The picture of the Grand Canal is still used in some part of today, especially in the Jiangsu and Zhejiang province, could be used very well. And sometimes in some part in Shandong was sealed and couldn't be used, couldn't let the boat to pass on. Grand Canal, oldest part of the canal, Grand Canal, lie between the Yangtze and the city of Huaiyin, formerly called the Qingjiangpu, in Jiangsu province, which was originally on the Yellow River when that river followed a course much farther to the south. This ancient waterway was first constructed as early as the 4th century BC and was rebuilt in 607 CE and had been used ever since. Both the surplus of goods and the convenience water transport was the prerequisite for the commercial development. In the Sui dynasty, farmers, enslaved people, and the criminals were forced by the Emperor Yang to work on the canal and the coast in human life due to the work, overwork, and disease were immoral. This project was so serious, the burden is so heavy, that the people was angry and there was a big farmer uprising in the later Sui dynasty, and the Sui dynasty was disappeared very quickly. So it's closely connected with the Grand Canal. And the Tang dynasty, it was the Grand Canal was remained the chief waterway, and the Lost Song period was the keep the such situation. In the Yuan dynasty, the need for a major transport link again arose during the Yuan dynasty, since Yuan dynasty transferred the capital from the Xi'an, nowadays Xi'an, to the Beijing, Dadu in the north. After that, the Yuan dynasty required a grain supply system. In 1282 to 83, the decision was made to build a new canal from the Huanghe in northern Shandong province. Eventually, another enlarged canal, the Huitong Canal, was built to connect the Huanghe with the Weihe at Linqing of Shandong province. In this way, the modern Grand Canal came into being. There was a map to show it. It's the Grand Canal of the Yuan dynasty. Before the Song, Tang, and Sui, the Grand Canal transferred from east to the west, and but from the Yuan dynasty, is the Grand Canal transferred from south to north. Tonghui River was about 51 miles long, was built by Kublai Khan, Hubei, and constructed in the capital city, Dadu, and currently is Beijing. This provides much convenience for the food transport from southern area to the capital. Additionally, the large circulation of paper currency further prospered domestic business affairs. During the Yuan dynasty, however, canal transport was expensive and ineffective in efficiency, and most of the grain went by sea. And after the Yuan dynasty, and the tribute grain was transported mainly due by the Grand Canal. Land in China count for only 8% of the world's total area, but feeded 20% of the world's population today. Furthermore, the increase in cultivated land have been much slower in China than in the rest of the world. For example, in China, the land is almost the same as the Europe, but the arable land is only about 9% of the Europe. The achievement may be attributed largely due to the Chinese efficient irrigation system that made the high productivity of farmland possible. area is so connected on flat span of 30 degrees of latitude, with ecological ranging from the tropical to the subarctic. The network made available a great range of leaf stock and a wide variety of timber, green, fish, fibers, salt, metals, building stone, and other resources. Therefore, the waterway system created in China are far more united policy and society that exists over comparable large and rich space elsewhere in the world. As in the past, Chinese people are devoting themselves to building more irrigation system. In 1995, 52% of cultivated land in China was irrigated, in a sharp contrast to about only 10% in the United States. With the help of modern technology and massive investment, people in China are building water management projects on major rivers at an unprecedented scale and precision. And if you are familiar with Chinese tax history, you maybe know that in a long history, Chinese people will have a service burden. They are mainly due to dig, to build river or make a river engineer is just like a tax burden in Chinese history, 徭役. So, and last not, even today, Chinese government is still concerned about the river engineer. Three Gorge Dam is a symbol to show that the Chinese government care about the water project. The recently completed Three Gorge Dam ranked #1 among all the dams built in the world history, but is only one part of an ambitious south to north water diversion project, 南水北调. This massive plan is expected to eventually divert about 44 billion cubic meters of water annually to the 60 north, because south part of China have a lot of flood and the north part of China is thirsty for water. So Chinese government try to send the surplus water from south to the north. The plan included the construction of canal such as the world has never seen, stretching south to north across the eastern, central, and western part of the country. When completed, the work will more tightly link China as a major region hydronically. From the map, left is the Three Gorge Dam. Right picture is about the south to north water project, 南水北调. So it's almost parallel like the Yellow River, but it crossed the many people's city, and in this way to solve the burden of the south part of China, also help the north part of China. So it will be another great water engineer project. The recently rapid economic growth in China has been accomplished by a substantial increase in the demand for water. But the Chinese per capita quantity of fresh water is only a quarter of the world's average. As the demand increasing, so too have problem with water shortage, pollution, falling groundwater table, and the damage from the flood and drought. These problems are rapidly approaching crisis population, at least in some parts of the country. For example, in August, there was a great flood happened in the Zhengzhou city of China, and all the Chinese people care about it and devote donation for it. Moreover, there are no signs of improvement in China's most threatened freshwater lake, and there are indicate that the ground pollution may be increasing. So nowadays, central government spend a lot of money and put a lot of energy to reduce, to prove the quality of the order, to prove the environmental. China's unprecedented economic growth over the past 30 years has come at a huge cost of the country's resources. And China needed to balance water protection with the continued industrialization, urbanization, and improve the agricultural productivity. So, as to improve the significant fit between the development and the water sustainability. Including water work on the mainland China, Chinese people are also would like to face the ocean. There was a many stories about the ocean voyage. Among them, the most famous was happened in the Ming Dynasty. From 1405 to 1433, Ming Chenzhu Zhu Di launched the ambitious aim to expand the Chinese tribute system to other countries and send the ship to India, the Persian Gulf, and the east coast of Africa, predating European efforts of similar scope. Zhenghe and unique and the need of the voyage, visiting many countries in Southeast Asia, expanding the influence of the Ming Dynasty in the world. Meanwhile, Emperor Chengzu began to construct an imperial palace from 1406 and moved the capital city from the Yantian or Nanjing of today to Beijing in 1421. Is the map to show that the ocean voyage by Zhenghe or Zhenghe Xiaxiyang. From it, we can see that he visited Vietnam, Philippines, Singapore, and also reached India and the Arab land, and also arrived in the Africa. Is a long alien, the Columbus voyage to the South America. And the Zhenghe's voyage lasted 7 times, and each time there are many people. The last time there are about 27,000 people accomplished with him. So you can imagine how huge the ocean voyage. And the fleet of the 300 ships, the ship was about 120 meters long and 48 meters wide. And we reached Indonesia, Vietnam, India, Somalia, and farther down to the east coast of Africa. And how big Zhenghe's boat? You can imagine there was a comparison between the Zhenghe's boat with the Forbidden City's hall, the Taihe Dian. And if we use the Zhenghe's boat compared with the Columbus flag ship, you can see how the difference between two of them. By 1557, the tribute system was replaced by the maritime trade, which saw Chinese importing silk and allowing European presence in the empire. This was the time of the expansion of new food, like sweet potato and peanuts entered Chinese food for the first time. So if we compare the voyage by Chinese people and by the Western colonials, you can see the huge difference. Zhenghe's voyage make the friendship and make the trade with the other country, but the Columbus voyage make the South Africa become a colonial place of the Western society. And after that, since the ocean voyage, Chinese food become more and more splendid. We have a lot of crops, lot of potato, lot of apples, and other things, spicy food from the Western society, from the Southern society, and become Chinese food become changed greatly especially in recently 200 years. The new crops also helped the people since the Ming and Qing dynasty. Chinese population become bombed, and this greatly helped the people to suffer from the hunger. Except the political reason, water has also great influence on Chinese culture. For example, in the song of the poem 诗经, there was a lot of poem collected with the author. For example, there's a poem. It said that the young shoots of red are gray, the white dew looks like frost. The lady who is so-called that person is on the other side of the river. And the Confucian also wrote some, talk about some words with the water. For example, he said that the wise find pleasure in water. The virtuous find pleasure in hill. The wise are the activity, and the virtuous are tranquil. The wise are joyful. The virtuous are long-lived. So he has a great comments about the wise people which connect with the water. Confucian also said that the time passed on just like water, not seizing day or night. In this way, they suggest the people take care of the time. A lot of painting connect with the topic of water. For example, there is the Qingming Shanghedu, riverside scenes at the Qingming festival in the Song dynasty. You can see that describe the ordinary people's life, lived collected with the water. In the Qing dynasty, another very famous picture, Wushu Fanhua Tu, prosperity of Suzhou, also connected with the Grand Canal with the water to show the people's daily life. So it's art connected with the water. The religion also, faith also connected with the Dragon King. The dragon is everywhere in Chinese popular culture. Dragon King, Nongwang, or Dragon King Temple can be found all over the country. Dragon King play a central role in many folk tales, and the dragon dance is a performance in the culture New Year and at other festivals. For example, just for the West, 西游记, there was a Dragon King, Nongwang, appeared and reappeared. The dragon boat race is the most welcome of Chinese carnivals. In China, we saw the image of dragon. No celebration would seem from completed. Especially the emperor also has the name. He liked to paint the dragon in his clothes. He is the 真龙天子, that means he is the real king, dragon king. In some picture about the dragon king complained by the people and believed by the people. Some people will pray for the dragon king temple. The image of dragon, no matter how it has changed, is always related to the water. In other words, the dragon is the god of water, the governor of the rain, holding the power to dedicate where and when to have rain fall. The worship of the dragon, therefore, is the worship of the god of water, or more probably of water itself. Like with the dragon, there is also Dragon Boat Festival, or named 端午节. 端午节, the Dragon Boat Festival, generally connected with the 5th day of the 5th lunar month, is come from the story of the Qu Yuan. Qu Yuan was a great poem and a great people loyal to his country, but he was very angry that he was not accepted by the king, and he jumped into the Minor River, a branch of the Yangtze River. And after that, the people soon after Quyuan, and they threw zongzi into the lake or the river. In this way, they hope the fish will not eat the body of the Quyuan. And after that, it's become a festival of Chinese history. So each 端午节, the people will eat the zongzi and also have a dragon boat competition. It's a dragon boat competition. In this way, like people practice their body and to show the resistance, respect to the Quyuan. After that, there was some other connection between the river. For example, another very famous the dreams of Red Mansion, 红楼梦. He said that the woman is made by water, the man is made by dust. So he thinks that the woman is more needed to be respected. So we can say that the art become a very, very common thing and a very, very common thing to the Chinese history. So in conclusion, now we're back to the conclusion. Water has an important role in Chinese history. The Yellow River and the Yangtze River are the mother river of China and the cradle of Chinese civilization. And in this way, Yu the Great controlled the flood and the history of conversation in Yellow River and the Huai River dynasty have contributed to a powerful and efficient administrative system in China. After the Xia dynasty, each dynasty will put a lot of effort, a lot of energy in protect, to build, to control the Yellow River. And even in the Yuan dynasty, there was a burst in the Yellow River, and a lot of people become uprising along the Yellow River. After that, the Yuan dynasty overthrown by one of the farmer, Zhu Yuanzhang, and the Ming dynasty appeared. So it connected with the Yellow River. And in the Ming and Qing dynasty, there are a lot of very famous engineers connected with the Yellow River, connected with the Grand Canal, and a lot of efforts, a lot of money put into the Grand Canal, especially in the Jiangsu Huai'an, is the governor of the river, is the governor of Tribute Green. So a lot of people located in the Huai'an to protect the Grand Canal, to protect the Yellow River. So you can imagine that how important the Yellow River, how important the Grand Canal affected the decision of the central government. At the same time, in this way, even from the south, from the Sui dynasty, from the Tang dynasty, the Chinese economic center located in the south part of China, but the Chinese political center and the enemy center is in the north part of China. So by the old transportation, especially by the Grand Canal, Chinese government connected it with used the economic food from south part of China, transported to north, and from this order, used the political order from north to south. In this way, they united China as a whole country. Water conservation projects such as Dujiangyan, Beijing-Hangzhou Grand Canal, and the Jiangsu-Zhejiang Seawall have effectively secured Chinese social and economic development. Traditions such as Dragon Boat and the Festival Dragon King Temple are an integral part of traditional Chinese culture. China's extensive water transport network closely connects the unified country. The fighting against the drought and flood in the past dynasty has demonstrated the great and yield spirit of the Chinese nation, have great influenced the Chinese history. At the same time, in the modern time, China was defeated by the Western country. First, it was defeated by the British Army because of the Opium War. After that, defeated by the France and by the other Western power. And the Chinese entered into a half semi-colonial self-federalism society. It also faced the problem from the water, come from the ocean. So you can say that water really affected Chinese history greatly. There are some material, if you want to know more about the water and the Chinese history, the relationship between the water and the Chinese history. There was a new book, a new series book, Gazette of Chinese Grand Canal, from the history, from the material, from the function, from the social culture to show not how important Grand Canal affected Chinese history. There are also many other material. As you know, in Western history, and water or Yellow River or Great Canal is a very important topic for them. So if you want to know more about it, you can read them. For example, Rui Huang, the Grand Canal during the Ming Dynasty, Howard Hinton, the Green Transport System Qing Dynasty, and Nilim Ni read about the flight in north part of China connected with the disaster flood. Of course, in China, there are more and more people do the research about the water and the project connected with the Grand Canal and the Tribute Green and so many material about it. Anyway, in short, I think I'm asked to say that in Chinese history, there was a lot of connection with it. And the Chinese political system connected with the water. Chinese people's college connected with the water. Chinese daily life connected with the water. So water is important in Chinese history, and I'm sure that water will still affect the Chinese history and will still affect a lot of these people's life. And I believe that with the guidance of Chinese government, we could use better and better of water to push our development and our economy. So it's my main part of the speech with the water and history. And I think there was several minutes left. I hope we can have more communicate. Thanks. I have some question. If you want to raise your hand, is okay. If you want to write in the chat, that's okay. One question. Is there any emergency like water not have such influence in Chinese culture and history? And